Okay, hello everybody. This is Vintage Vinny, and welcome to my first ever live interview here on my channel. If you are new here, my name is Vintage Vinny, and I specialize in anything vintage that I love finding and that I'm attracted to, whether it be glassware, pinup, movie posters, advertising trays, whatever catches my eye. But I love it, and I have two people that nobody knows who I'm interviewing, so this is very fun for me and for the two interviewees. We have 8 questions that we're going to be answering, and we will also answer questions that you all will put in the chat. This isn't a live sale, just to warn you. It's just something that I thought we would do and thought would be fun. So let me make sure I know what I'm doing. Okay, so that's how you do that. So if I want to show a comment or I'll show a question, I can automatically do so. So let's see who we've got in the chat here real quick. So we've got Miss Donna Rainwater, Punky Spray, hello. We got Laura Bemos, thanks for stopping in. We've got Jill Mazina, hopefully I said that right. Miss Lynn Hampton, and then I commented, of course. So we'll wait a little bit, I said, not sure what this is about, so I don't have a channel, but I'm here to support. And Laura, we love your support, and we love your witty comments as well. We've got Nate in the chat. Nate, thanks for stopping in. Hopefully your Saturdays are going well also, because mine was definitely. I just got back from Pennsylvania, like literally 15 minutes ago before this started. So we've got Miss Jean Draper. Thanks for coming in. This looks like a new viewer. Hotel Soap 47. Thanks for coming on. So I have 2 guests that I'm going to be interviewing today. Some of you might know them. Some of you may not. If you don't know who they are and you're not subscribed to them, I highly suggest you do so because they put out great content. They're both very knowledgeable about what they like. And I hope this little interview will help you get to know them a little bit better. So I'm going to introduce them one by one. And maybe I'll wait just a little bit longer so we can get some more people in here. So we've got Jeannie Lyle, I don't think I've heard of you before, so welcome aboard. Miss Kim Zapp, thanks for coming on. And there's Michelle, Comfy Cozy Living, thanks for coming in. Right, Laura, we are all out finding treasures. That's what I was doing out in PA. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Jean. Laura doesn't have to behave on this stream. I don't think there are going to be any kids on here because my channel is not really a kid-friendly thing. It's not kid-friendly, really. So we got Miss Carolyn Whitney. Thank you for coming on. So we'll wait just about 2 more minutes, I think, and then we'll go ahead and I'll start introducing our interviewees. So I hope you all are enjoying this nice weather amid the pandemic and you're able to do some things that we weren't able to do for the last 2 months, especially with the weather warming up. Yes, Jean, please misbehave with Laura tonight. It's going to be so fun. Okay. So like I said, we have 8 questions that I came up with. If you all would like to know something about us, you can leave it in the chat and I will do my best to keep up with it and we will answer those questions as they come. Yeah, it was really nice today here in Maryland and in Pennsylvania. I was out in Hanover, I think. Yeah, I went to a place in New Oxford, PA, and then I think Hanover was like right down the road from there. So I decided to just up and wing it and see what was out there. I visited that one antique mall that was in New Oxford, and then I went to the one thrift store that CLL doesn't like to even say, and I thought their prices were pretty good. They had some higher priced items, but not terrible. Oh, hello, Chastity Blevins. Thank you for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. She'll get into her stash. New Oxford is great. I'll have to message you later, Lynn, about the place that I went to. Okay, so we are about, I guess we'll say we're about a minute away from this, so I'll go ahead and I'll tell you about the first guest that I'm interviewing. She is relatively new to YouTube. She's just hit the 100 subscriber mark, which is fantastic. And do any of you guys have a guess as to who I may have on this chat? Because you all don't know. I'll let you all answer. Laura. Oh, Lord. What is she going to say tonight? Hi, Michelle. Hi, Judy. All right, so I'll give you all a hint of the first guest that I'm going to be sharing and talking to in this chat. So like I said, she's relatively new to YouTube. She loves Fostoria glassware. She collects Coke serving trays like I do. And every week on her channel, she spins some rockin' 50s records. And here she is.
Hello, everyone.
On Vintage and Vinyl.
It's great to be with you, Veni, this evening. This is going to be a ton of fun.
Definitely will. And since we have Laura and Jean being naughty in chat, this is going to be one heck of a...
Oh, it sure will be. The chat's always interesting and fun. And
it's a no kid zone, so I don't think we're going to have any problems unless we get a bunch of trolls.
Yes, that's a good thing.
Yep, so I'm excited to have you on tonight, especially because I don't think you've done a live interview with anyone on here yet, have you?
I've only been on Trusty's channel. He did the vintage deep dive into typewriter 10s with me, but I haven't been on anyone else's channel, so this is very exciting for me.
Awesome. And speaking of which, I think you just mentioned who my next guest is going to be. Very famous for his pottery. He does live sales also, and he is very, very knowledgeable and always likes to share all of his unboxings with things that he purchases online, whether he gets a package that was very well packed or one that was not so well packed. So here he is, Mr. Patrick from Trusty Huckster Mercantile.
Hello. Hello. Excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
All right, we got Laura and Mary Beth. What's going on, guys? Thank you all for coming on. Oh, I gotta make sure I hide this. All righty, so if anybody's new here, if they missed the intro, if you have any questions that you would like each of us to answer, you can leave it in the chat and I'll do my best to keep up with them. So I think the first thing that we're gonna start off with, and we'll let Katie answer first because it is ladies first, is what inspired you to start making YouTube videos?
So my journey with YouTube is very actually interesting because I didn't start on YouTube. I started on another platform and I would post 10-second clips of what I was spinning on my record player every night on Facebook. And then I started watching more and more YouTube content. And Veni, you were the first person I saw on YouTube. And I got so inspired by your Coca-Cola trays and, of course, vintage collections because I thought, yay, there's someone else out there like me that loves this stuff. And then I started getting more into other YouTubers on here. And, of course, this community is just wonderful. And I thought to myself, you know, I could combine the record aspect of what I love and the vintage stuff and create a channel. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and we all had all this time on our hands. And so I thought, why not now? So I've really enjoyed making YouTube content. It's been super fun.
Definitely. What about you, Patrick? What got you inspired to start making content here?
First what started was getting into vintage reselling. So last year I opened an Etsy shop, and in preparation of doing that, I basically found a bunch of other YouTubers that really educated me kind of in the process of vintage reselling and, you know, how to augment what I was already looking to sell on Etsy, which was an entire collection of props from theater. Anyone who watches my shows knows that a lot of this came from theater. So I started watching the videos and launched my Etsy channel. And I do like the research aspect of it. So I really started, anyone who knows my channels knows I have a very unhealthy, a restraining order level obsession with Jeffrey at Real Nifty Vintage. And he was the first one that ever mentioned your name, Vinny, because he had watched your video. So he had first mentioned you. And then as anything through YouTube, you end up finding other channels, you know, it recommends other channels in that vein. And so I've really started gravitating toward the researching ones. And I just decided after being up for a couple of months that I wanted to kind of put out the same kind of content that I liked viewing. So I started with some haul videos and some general things, and, you know, small channel didn't really take off much. Stopped for about a month or so and then revamped, and then really started focusing kind of like Katie through the pandemic I suddenly found myself with a lot more time and started creating more specific content that got into the unboxing videos, got into the interview shows, got into some of the other stuff. So it's not all about doing sales. It's not all about selling. It's about putting information out there and building up this vintage community, which has just been a really fun group.
It is rather fun. And I think for me, it just started off with watching a bunch of haul videos from flea markets and thrift stores, because I've been doing it since I was little. So it was something I was kind of just immune to. So I found a bunch of people, and then I was like, you know, I like the same stuff. Why don't I just start doing it myself? So, you know, 7 years in, I'm like, I'm hooked. Like, I can't stop. All right, so the next question that I have for both of you is, how did you start collecting, Katie, for you, typewriter tins, and Patrick, for you, porcelain pieces?
So I love typewriter tins, and really my love started with advertising tins. I love all things advertising. And I got very excited when I was walking through the antique store one day and I found this tin. I just saw it. I wasn't even sure what it was until I saw a typewriter ribbon. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I have a typewriter that belonged to my great-grandfather. And I thought, I would love to have this. And for $2, I thought, you know, why not? And then, of course, I just went down the rabbit hole and fell absolutely in love with ribbon tins. And anytime I would see one at a good price, I just continued to pick it up. And now I probably have like 20 or so.
Like potato chips, you can't just have more than one.
That's right.
Or cheese in this case, since you said you like those. What about you, Patrick? How did you start with porcelain pieces or pottery?
Mine probably started really when I was a kid. I was raised in the 70s, and I was definitely raised in a household where Norman Rockwell plates and Precious Moments and David Winter, you know, surrounded us. That was going to be my college education, and didn't turn out that way. But so I was raised very around porcelain. And as much as it became very kitschy, and in my early adulthood was something that I just felt like I had to, you know, carry around every time I moved, that I started getting rid of pieces, I didn't appreciate it. I always had that appreciation of the porcelain, and I also had developed this interest in collecting. So I just always had these different collections. And then as I again got through into my adulthood, every time I kind of like Katie, I'd see something I really like, I'd start building a collection around it. Or in the case, you know, behind me, I have a 19th century stoneware, salt glazed stoneware collection. It really got built up around this piano. I bought the vertical grand piano, got put into a room, and I needed something that looked good on the piano. So that's where the stoneware came from. When I moved into this place and I had this huge window that happened to have a ledge in front of it, that's where my swung vase collection came from, because it looked great in the window. So I just always liked collecting, and it just kind of changes as I go from time to time and find things that I like.
That's how I am too. And with my collections, whether it be the lunch boxes or the advertising trays, I really don't know where it started. It just was one of those things where I saw it cheap and I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll take that. We have one question. I think this is going for you, Patrick. This is from Donna from Punky Spray. She says, what do you consider a good day thrifting? How many items?
That's the potato chip reference. I can't do just one. I tend, and it kind of depends on what I'm thrifting for. I will go days, because for those who don't know my channel, I am a reseller on Etsy, and I do some live sales, but this is not my primary income. I do have a day job that normally I travel for as part of my job. So again, with the pandemic, I'm not traveling, so it gave me more free time. Sometimes I'll thrift for myself. That is my goal, where I will say, you know what, I've got a gap in my swung glass collection. I want another piece of purple or whatever. And I'll kind of be looking for something specific. Other times, if I'm just sourcing, I just went sourcing yesterday and I'm like, I really don't need anything. I probably won't get much. And I came back with 5 bags. You know, I just can't put something down. And what reselling has allowed me to do, which has been so much fun for me, is because I have always liked collections, but there is some level of practicality. I can't collect everything. That in some cases, I'll find something that I just really, really like. And it sounds really weird, but I do get some joy picking it up, knowing I can put it into somebody else's hands. that it's not going to get thrown away, that it's not going to end up in the Goodwill bins or something like that, that somebody else is going to love this. So I'm just kind of like preserving it until it gets into the next people's hands. And I actually kind of enjoy that. So a good day is if I find something either for myself or if I find something I think somebody else will give a good home for. I like comments I sometimes get. People like my aesthetic. And because this is not a full-time gig for me, so I recognize I'm lucky in that regard, I can be selective. So I'll pass things by that I know will make money, but I'm not necessarily going to have fun selling it. I don't want to photograph it. It's like, because there's a lot of work, getting into vintage reselling, a lot more than I anticipated. Mm-hmm. I thought I was prepped with all those videos. I don't want to take photographs of car parts or batteries.
No, me either.
Or hair care products. I mean, there's plenty of money to be made in all of those things. And I see opportunities that I'm walking by, but I'm lucky. I don't have to do it for income. So I want to do it what's fun. And so then I do get people that will say, oh, I like your aesthetic because the stuff that I'm liking. Not everyone's going to like everything I do, but if they like what I do, it's, it means something to me that people like that.
Exactly. So Katie, this one's for you. And this is from Chastity, a new viewer. She says, Katie, if you could get any Coke idea, no matter the price, what would it be?
Oh,
Maybe
if I had to get an item, it would probably be some of the earlier Coke trays. Now, Vinny and I have talked about this a lot, but I have trays that he wants and he has trays that I want. So I would say some of the really, really early trays would just be wonderful. I have the Flapper Girl, but I think it's the Duster Girl, Vinny, that you have. And then I love the Soda Jerk serving to the car. There's a specific reason. You know what I'm talking about, but I would love that tray. Of course, online, it's like a couple $1,000s sometimes if it's in mint shape. So I will just wait until someone doesn't know what they have and I'll get lucky.
So I have a little competition on my hand. I'm watching you.
If we went to the store together, I think we'd have a race to the Coca-Cola area.
We would do what Misty and Rachel would do with vintage Trusty. If we had a booth with Coke and it was all cheap.
Yep, for sure.
And this one also for you, Katie. This is from Jean. She says, do you have a day job?
So I do woodworking. That is my passion. My grandfather was an electrical engineer, and he taught me everything I know about turning and doing woodworking. So I absolutely love that. But I do love public speaking. I know I'm kind of the odd man out here on this one. Most people are terrified. But my mom was an English major, so that's where I get that from.
That's awesome. So Michelle at Mermaid Cove says that listing sucks. And it can if you're, for me, I'm Mr. Quick Thumbs on my phone, so I can get everything done possible for one listing. I know with Etsy, it's a little bit more complicated because they really get specific with certain things. Well, Patrick, you would know because you sell on Etsy. Because one time I read one thing on Etsy and literally it said, oh, what's the material? Oh, what company is it made by? And I'm like, can I just list the freaking thing, please?
My struggle is photography. It's something that I've actually started following some channels specifically on tips on photography, because at this point I do everything on my iPhone. This interview happens to be on my laptop. And because I sell glass, I have the hardest time taking photographs of clear glass. It's just one of those cases that I'm selling the wrong stuff for the skill set I have. So that's where I struggle. And what happened during the pandemic is I had all kinds of photos. What I'll do is I get in a case of a haul like what I just talked about, I'll unwrap it all. I'll actually photograph it all at once so that I've got all my lights set up. I've got my backdrop set up. I do all of that. So I'll have 15, 20, 25 photos, sets of photos so that I can list them over time. I ran out of photos. I had everything everything got listed. So I'm like, oh man, I got to photograph more. And it was the stuff that hadn't been photographed was the stuff that I didn't want to photograph because it was too hard. So, it's definitely, it's a learning experience all the time.
Clear glass can be extremely hard to photograph. The other day I had a piece of glassware and I was trying to look it up on the Google Lens, and it thought that I was searching for symbols. So I guess I should be in a band now instead of in the vintage business.
My word. Do you take like copy paper? Like, let's say you're listing this really awful and dirty glass here. Would you put like white paper in here to kind of show the pattern off if you were selling them as a like if you were selling glass sets?
Would
you do that?
Yes, I've done it. I'll usually have, and you can usually tell my older photographs because I didn't have backdrops and cameras. I was actually photographing against the back of my piano, which sometimes it was dark, but it worked well for some of the glass pieces. But if it has the pattern, yes, I learned that trick, I think probably watching another YouTube and seeing either paper or in some cases just tissue paper wadded up or pushed into it, depending on what the pattern is. But it's always even I started with a ring light, and then you'd get that big circular reflection coming off the side. So I'd always be trying to angle it. And that's why there's been several pieces of glass in my live sales, because it got to the point where I'm like, you know what, I can actually just show it. And I can twist it. And it's kind of like a live video. Now, Etsy's actually introduced a new thing, which I haven't tested yet. They're actually posting videos in the listings. And that's actually how I'm going to start using it, is for some of the pieces that are glass, I can actually do a video where I'll be able to angle it, because in some cases it's etched or it's like a white on white pattern. So I am a fan of Etsy. I know not everyone particularly likes it, but I'm a fan of it. And there are things that I don't like, but I usually find that I can work around them easier, and haven't really explored the smaller ones. And I put a couple things on eBay, and to be honest, I struggle with eBay. So I haven't really gone, headlong into that yet.
Yeah, polar opposite for me. I struggle with Etsy, not eBay. eBay's easy for me. All right, I don't want to get off the track too far, but we got a couple other questions in the chat here. So Nate wants to know from you, Katie, where in the US you're from.
So I'm from Jacksonville, Florida, and it's just a wonderful place to live. I really enjoy the weather. Of course, it does get hot sometimes, so that is one strike against it, but the clear sun and nice sandy beaches are wonderful.
That sounds great, especially during the wintertime.
Yes, all the people from New York come down here. Right.
Yeah, my great aunt and uncle stay in Florida during the winter, and then they come up and stay with my, what is she, my second cousin for the summer, because it gets crazy down there. All right, and then Chastity wants to know if you do photography and what your best piece is.
I do photography. That's another hobby and passion of mine. And my dad taught me a lot about photography. He absolutely is amazing at taking photographs. And my favorite are from New York. I went at the beginning of the year, of course, before all the COVID stuff started, and I was so proud to get a really cool picture, in my opinion, of the Empire State Building, which is something that I've always wanted to have a great photo for the wall, and I was very proud of it.
That's cool, because I like photography too, but I suck at it.
Sometimes I think it's not.
Katie, you said doo-doo.
I did. Well,
I couldn't help it. Sorry.
No worries, Veni. That will be fun in the chat for the next couple of weeks.
Right. Okay. So the third question that I have is what is your favorite piece in your collection, if you have it handy, or you can just describe it.
Again, that would probably be the Empire State Building photograph that I took. I was really excited to go up at night and take photography. That's something that I'm learning more about, but I do love is night photography. And I was able to get the Chrysler Building in the background with that red glowing from the tower. And it was just really cool. So again, I'm probably not at the professional level, but I'm just proud of my own work.
What about you, Patrick? Do you have your favorite piece on hand?
I do. And it's one of the cases where I don't actually know a ton about it. I picked this up at, they don't do it anymore, but Chicago, which is where I'm based, had a pretty major antique show every year. And I would go, and this was kind of a more expensive piece that I purchased that probably isn't worth what I paid, probably about maybe 15, 20 years ago. And it's a piece of secessionist pottery and porcelain. It's not marked, and which piece, this is probably around 1910. Wow. So it wasn't necessarily for outside the Austrian or German market. I just like the look of it, the lines of it. At the time, I have and still do a arts and crafts style dining room, and it just looked great as part of that. And I liked it better than a collection of Roseville that I was trying to build up at that time. And so I really wanted to build up that collection. It's so expensive and relatively rare in the United States that it's really been difficult. And what actually was funny is the way I actually found Katie was through a challenge video challenge that George at the Antique Nomad had done for Show Off Your Bunker. And as I'm walking around filming things in my bunker, that was a piece that, I walk by it every day, but that was a piece I suddenly started talking about. And I remembered, like, you know what, I really do like this style and I love this piece. Why didn't I ever buy more? So I just, hopped onto Etsy, hopped onto eBay, see what I found. And I just got another Paul Doxel piece and another piece of amphora. So I will start building that collection. So that I have different favorites in each collection I have, but that kind of is winning out right now.
Wow. That's cool though. I would have to say that it's hard for me to say what my favorite is, especially with the trays, because each one is so different. They put a different one out pretty much each year. But for those of you who are new, I just picked this up yesterday. I love my advertising trays. It's for Great Western Champagne. I'd never heard of it before. I just liked the deco lines of it. Flapper Girl flying off on a cork that I guess had just been popped.
Is it square?
It's kind of like, yes, I guess you could say it's square.
Okay.
Like round.
Rectangular. Yeah, it looks square. Okay.
Yeah, I love this kind of stuff, just that look of the 20s or 30s. And I thought it was a reproduction when I first, saw it. And I was like, oh, should I take the chance? But I said 75 cents. I'll just up and wing it and do it. So I got that. That's I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I do like it. So we'll do one more question on here, and then we'll have you all answer another question in the chat.
So Vinny, I thought you were talking about the chat question. So I hate to interject here, but this is my favorite piece in my collection. Is this?
Ooh, I'm drooling in my brain right now.
This is from the 1930s, and it's one of the only Coke trays that has this neat saying. It says, "Meet me at the soda fountain." So I just think this is really cool.
Oh, very neat.
She is. She's very cool. I like her a lot. Okay. So this is a good one, and I remember when we talked about this yesterday. So if you could choose any era to live in, which would it be and why? Katie, we'll start with you.
So if I have to go back in time and pick a particular era, I have to pick the 50s. Now, I don't always agree with some of the ideology of the time, but I absolutely love the music, the fashion. Some of the sayings are great, like "Hey Daddy-O" and "What's the big idea?" And of course, again, I said the music, but you gotta love Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Bill Haley in the Comments, the Platters, the Del Vikings. There's just so many great artists from the time, and that's why I love the Nifty 50s.
Have you seen the movie The Girl Can't Help It with Jane Mansfield and Tony Randall?
No, but I'm going to have to add that to my watch list now.
You need to watch it because that movie shows music clubs from back in the day. You've got Fats Domino, I think the Shirelles that were in there. Ooh. I think Little Richard makes an appearance in there too. I think Julie London does too. So there's a bunch of really cool mute scenes from clubs back in the day, not like what we call a club now.
Have you seen the movie That Thing You Do?
Who's in that?
I forget the actor's name, but it's my dad's favorite movie, and it has a lot of really great artists from that time too in the movie, so it's fun to watch.
It's a Tom Hanks movie. He has a relatively small role in it,
yeah,
but he produced it. His wife is actually in it, an even smaller role. She's a waitress in the middle of it. So they produced that, and it's just became available on Amazon Prime to purchase. You used to only be able to rent it, and now just literally within the last couple of weeks you can buy it, and I just bought it so that I have it as part of my video to kind of throw on in the background. It's a great movie.
Oh, fun.
So what about you, Patrick? If you could choose any era to live in, what would it be and why?
I would go back a little bit further. It's just been an era that I've always been interested in reading about, and just the idea of being a part of it is probably in like the 19aughts or teens. So kind of the Titanic era, pre-Titanic era, pre-income tax era. So the idea of some of the wealth, income tax didn't get introduced until 1914, I think it was. So
Oh, wow.
the reason you've got so much wealth prior to that time is because there was no income tax. So people just kept accumulating money. Now, granted, I'd probably one of the coal miners that made nothing at that time, but the idea of the fashions, the culture, the society culture of that. I'm not that big into the Victorian era. I mean, so it really kind of postdates that. So really more the Edwardian era. I like the fact that they would actually have some knowledge of medicine. That's a big deal for me. So like they know what germ theory is, so we're kind of at least contemporary enough for that. But it's just those fashions, like the pre-flapper fashions, definitely pre-depression era. So really like the aughts and the teens, really, really my jam.
That's very cool. If I had to pick an era, and it's hard for me, I would probably have to say the 40s and the 50s. It's like a really hard mix between the two in terms of the style and the look and everything. Like you said, Katie, I don't agree a lot with, this, way people were and some of the attitudes and the politics of those eras. But the iconic pop culture pieces and things that we see that we reflect on so much, like the pinup girl became popular in the 40s and made its way well into the 50s. I mean, you see big stars like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield, Lola Brigida, Sophia Loren, Brigitte Bardot. All those people, all those women were very famous, iconic, bombshells of their day. And what they were wearing in those days was considered risque, whereas nowadays it's completely normal. Like you see a woman in those peep show magazines wearing the fishnet stockings, and back then that was considered, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this without getting demonetized, but she looked like a hooker or a prostitute. Nowadays you see girls wearing that kind of stuff, and it's normal. It's part of a certain look, and it's not trashy or skanky or anything like that.
Well, it's fun you introduce the 40s as the range, because what I think is really fun is some of the nose art on the warplanes, and they did a lot of those those pinup images on the front of the planes, and it's just like, again, you think of the era that would not be socially acceptable, but that was just, it was a thing, and it was kind of that early end. That makes it it does make it a fun era, that whole pinup look that crossed several decades.
It certainly does. My grandparents' neighbor was actually a pilot in World War II, and he dropped, he took photographs also, and he took some of the photographs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And it was really neat talking to him, because he remembers the pinups on the planes, and he has pictures in front of the pinups, and then he talked about how they eventually, had to get rid of that.
Ruining the fun. But then again, think of the times.
Right.
All right, so we've got Scott from the Old Curiosity Shop in the house, and he wants to know if, did it work? Nope. So he wants to know if any of you have bought an item and then accidentally broke it before you could place it for sale. And I know exactly what Scott's talking about, because we met up in February before the quarantine, and he broke something that he just absolutely fell in love with.
I don't think I've broken anything in the process of packing it. One of the things that I do, because my inventory is not massive, one of the things that I do is after I photograph it, I immediately wrap it as ready for shipment. And so when I store it, I don't store it on a shelf unwrapped. It's actually already, I can throw it in a box. I'll still pack it around it more, but it's ready. It's already wrapped. What I have done in a couple of cases is when I go to, if I have to unwrap it or whatever the case, or something new, if I notice there is damage to it that I didn't know at the time I photographed it or the time I listed it. And so then I'll always contact them and either offer them a discount or allow them to cancel the sale, because I'm big on not selling things with any damage, unless it's like a super special piece, like the Coca-Cola trays. Obviously, that's something that would have marks on them. So I don't think I've actively broken something, but I better, knock on wood, because it's just a matter of time before I do.
What about you, Katie? I know you don't resell, but have you ever bought something from an antique shop and then brought it home, or was, you were in transit getting ready to bring it in the house and you accidentally dropped it or something like that?
Yes, actually, that happened to me. I was so excited to get this wonderful etched Fostoria bowl, and I had it all wrapped up. And again, just me trying to muster everything and carry everything in at one time because I don't like 2 trips. I should have known better, and it went splat on the ground. And
I don't like the sound of that.
Well, luckily it was like $4, so I didn't lose out tons, but I was still just so sad. But I did glue part of it back together and did the best I can with it.
Use crazy glue?
Yep, crazy glue or Gorilla Glue.
Best thing. All right, we'll answer another question in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and answer some other questions that I have written down. So Coach Ultimo, and I think this is Tom. I think I remember you from Periscope years ago. Hopefully I got that right. He wants to know, is it difficult to learn what glass or cut glass to buy? What's the best way to learn or research the patterns? Because there's so much of it out there. That's more of your expertise, Katie, because you like a lot of the glass. So what would you have to say in response to that?
I would say, it is hard to learn the patterns. Of course, really my best advice, go out and feel the pieces with your hands, because certain pieces just have a feel, and that is really the best way. But also getting a couple of staple glassware books. I think it's is it Kelly? Kelly makes a series of glassware books that you can get used for like $2, and it's like depression glassware, kitchen glassware, and it has some of the very basic patterns that you'll see out there. And that really, really helps to identify, especially some of the clear glass when you can't use like Google Lens to find it online. But yes, I just start, finding what you like as far as a collection. And then if you're doing something for resale, definitely find out what patterns seem to sell more like online. And you can do that by typing in major glassware brands like Fostoria or Avon or New Martinsville, things like that. But I would say just feel it, touch it, and get out there and look at it.
The dreadful Avon. Lord, I can't. Well, every time I go near one of those disgusting decanters, I have to smell it. I don't know why. And I don't like that stuff. I have to smell it for some reason. I can't help it.
I think Coach Ultima actually, hit on the biggest part of that. Is there's so much out there. And from my perspective, some people could, but you really can't be an expert in everything. And so when I first started, I remember I think it was the very first auction I ever participated in. I was able to get a box of cut glass, and it was true cut glass, not pressed glass. And I thought I got this great deal on it. And so I put it in a little showcase that I had at an antique mall with what I thought were dirt cheap prices, because it doesn't sell for particularly much. But, this was the kind of stuff that, if we were around it or saw it in my grandmother's house, it was, behind glass. It was, very, don't touch. It's, very valuable. And I was selling a oval compote that was for like $5 and it still didn't sell, but I can't ship it because it weighs something like 15 pounds. So it's not realistic to try and ship some of it. So what I discovered is I needed to kind of go into areas that I particularly liked and start being knowledgeable just in those areas, because there's, even one of the areas I really like, actually, Veni and I just talked about this last week. He included in one of his haul videos a figural glass flower frog. And I have a figural glass frog collection. And it is the hardest thing to keep track of because these companies went out of business. The molds got bought by somebody else. So he has an absolutely attractive piece that I absolutely want to buy, but I don't understand the base, because the base, the base is not anything I've ever seen in any of my books. So it's easier to get books, just like what Katie's saying. If you have a brand that you really like, if you have an era you really like, so I'll just like have a little side point. I'm totally jazzed that Scott from the Old Curiosity Shop is here, because I live off his videos. Oh, man. But the way he does it is he has a very specific niche, and so that he doesn't have to worry about 70s glass, because he doesn't do 70s glass. He needs to know like that is 70s, so he's not going to carry it, or that's a reproduction. But you can find those eras, like the Depression glass. Even Crazy Lamp Lady talks about EAPG. That is so prevalent, but it's so hard to research because there's so much of it. So sometimes you just can't worry about it. Find the areas that you really like and then focus on those. And like Katie said, really find the ones that have some value in it, so that what you're spending your time on is going to then actually recoup if you're doing it as a reseller. if you like it, you just like it. And then it may not matter who made it or what it's worth. You buy it because you like it.
Right.
Yeah, and I would also be careful too with sets. Sets can be good because people like multiple things, especially when it comes to like cups or plates. But sometimes for me as a collector, I just want one little dish standalone of that particular pattern. So sometimes it is nice, honestly, to find stuff separated out, because then you can build your collection a little bit more with various odds and ends. So I like that.
There was a question that just popped up, Vinny, if we can grab it really quick. Michelle at Mermaid Cove, because I used the term, we weren't going to talk about this, but because I used the term the figural flower frogs. Scott, there might be a better term for them, but what these are, they're made out of glass. They have the holes in them. They would typically be set into a bowl. And so there would be a figure on top. Now, most of the ones I have are people. So there's the draped lady, there's the bashful Charlotte, there's the two kids, which is a boy holding a baby goat. So two kids. So you've got a couple of different women holding flowers. There's all kinds of those, and then there are also animal ones. And so the only animal one I have right now is a heron. I've got an owl in my shopping cart that I'm waiting to push the button on to see if I'm going to buy that. Vinny had what was it? I think you had a bashful Charlotte. So you had
You want me to go get it real quick? Because it's only in the other room.
Yeah, if you want to grab it really quick. Mine are like literally,
Let me go grab it.
Mine are about 10 feet in the air. So I really don't want to grab mine. So I should have grabbed one just think about it. Because that is probably of my newest collection. That's one of my favorites because it kind of started as an extension of the swung glass vases. And I've stumbled across, I didn't know it existed. I'd never heard of them. And so when I found my first one, I'm like, oh my God, I must have it. And actually it was, my very first one was an animal. It was the seagull. And I picked it up super cheap. I was so excited. And then when I wanted to buy more, they were so expensive. So I only have a handful right now, but yeah, I think you had the bashful Charlotte.
Yeah, so this is what she looks like. I don't know if she's going to focus or not. But here's the bottom. The bottom is weird.
Wow. I've never seen anything like that.
Kind of ribbed.
So I've seen, I looked through the books and I found some that had a similar style base, but they were European. But I couldn't find any European manufacturers that had made a bashful Charlotte. So I don't know. This would fall under Scott's knowledge if Scott's still on.
Right.
And then there was a question about the color. Cambridge made the original bashful Charlotte, and they did make two versions of amber. I think one was called amber and one was called peach below, I think it was.
I don't know what this one is.
And so that one seemed to be, it could have been one of the two, but it also could have been a 70s repro.
Yeah.
And my books don't go into the repros that much, but Cambridge repros have a different style base. It's like a waterfall base. This is, your education for the day. It has a waterfall base. So unlike the cantilevered base that he has right now where the flowers go, it's more of a waterfall base and it's circular. The reproductions, it's ribbed. And so it's very obvious that it's the reproduction. They did the right thing when they made the later versions. They made the base different. So it's very easy to tell. I know this very well because I bought one as an original and it's not. So, you do learn as you go. But that base I hadn't seen, and I have a couple books on them. Can't find it. Can't find it on the internet. And the problem on the internet is, just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. So the vintage community has been so great that I've reached out to people I don't even really know, and just say, hey, you know what? You had something like this on your channel. I just had a question. Sometimes I get responses, sometimes I don't, and I don't get offended if I don't. I realize, people have huge channels and this is a business. They don't want to just be answering things for free, but yeah.
Trying to scroll back up. So let me get into another question here. So what is your favorite cuisine? Like, do you like Italian food, Mexican food, Indian food, Chinese?
So I really love French food. I love a good mouche bouche, which I know sounds a little fancy, but it's a pre-appetizer to an appetizer, which just is wonderful because I love food. I mean, who doesn't? My dad's taught me a lot about cooking, and I have Julia Child's cookbook now, so I'm hoping to cook my way through her book and learn more.
What about you, Patrick? What's your favorite cuisine?
Because I live alone, I tend not to cook much on my own. So my typical cuisines are just what's quick, easy, frozen meal. But of the food that I like, I really like Thai. I really like Thai food. I like spicy food in general. But the biggest thing, I also like the French style cuisine. I love sauces. So anything that I can like have soupy, scoop it up with pasta or anything that's really a good sauce. I'm not big into the dry rubs and that kind of stuff. But Thai is one of my favorites. Penang curry is probably my favorite dish in Thai. But I've never made it. That's just something I go to a restaurant for and let somebody else do the work.
Right. Well, I have Italian blood, so I like a lot of pasta, and pizza, of course, is one of my favorites. But I also like Mexican food. Like, if I'm not eating pizza, you'll find me over at the Chipotle that's in town getting a burrito because I love Chipotle. I didn't have it for 2 months because of quarantine, and I didn't want to have to go through the hassle of ordering it online. So I'm like, okay, screw it. And then out of the blue one day, I'm like, I really, really want it. I haven't had it in ages. So I went ahead and ordered it, and it was like heaven on earth biting into that burrito.
I'm sure.
All right. So next question I have for you all is, what is your unicorn piece that you got so cheap that you just couldn't believe it?
So my unicorn piece is another Coca-Cola piece, but I was thrilled when I found this. It is a Coca-Cola cigar band from 1933. Coca-Cola actually did make cigars and gum, and the gum and cigars are very, very rare. The gum, I've seen one stick go for like $4,000 online, and of course, Petrotti's Guide is a little bit outdated on the prices, but they do have it priced pretty high. But I walked into this booth, and this guy said, "Oh, I've never seen one of these before. It must be just kind of made up. Somebody did it on their home computer." And I knew exactly what it was. And he had it for $4. So
Whoa.
I was thrilled, $4. And I couldn't believe it. I just didn't say anything, took it right up to the cash register and said sold.
That's what you're supposed to do, especially there. What about you, Patrick? What's your piece that you just could not believe that you had gotten for so cheap?
I would probably say a lot of what I have wouldn't necessarily fall into the super valuable or super rare. So when you mentioned that was one of the things you wanted to talk about, what immediately came to mind was this piece. It's a piece of Lillian porcelain, and I will hopefully be doing a deep dive video kind of interviewing myself on Lillian porcelain, because this has become one of my latest obsessions. I did a vacation with my daughter. She was studying in Germany last year and was supposed to be through this year, but that's another story. For Christmas and New Year, we were in Vienna, Austria. And long story, there was a day that I was there by myself. I do not speak German. She's the one that speaks German, but I was there by myself, and I went to a museum, and they talked about the Vienna kitchen. And it was this kitchen outfitted from the 50s/60s with these pastel colored metal cabinetry, just these amazing colors of this. It was just an amazing look. That's not necessarily my favorite era, but I sat there and just fell in love with it and tried to translate the sign. That weekend, we went to a a flea market in downtown Vienna. And this is a piece, the porcelain they had on hand was Lillian porcelain. I'd never heard of it. This is a piece of Lillian porcelain. There was a shop that had just Lillian, and everything was in the €200 to €300 range. And that was just not something I wanted to pick up and try and haul home on the airplane. So I found this was like in a little junk booth later down in the flea market for €1. And so it's just one of these cases that it became the first piece of my Lillian porcelain. If you've seen any of my unboxing videos, I've gotten a lot more since then. But this is just kind of like a little favorite because it's the second generation stamp. So it's actually fairly old. And I love the look of it. It's a Glühwein pitcher, so a mulled wine pitcher. So I'm learning all about, even European dining. And I like the Blumenband design on it. So I like it because of the euro, because I've been trying to add to it since then. I can't even get an ashtray for under 10 or 15 bucks. So this was a nice little addition for €1.
For me, it's really hard to say what my unicorn piece is because I'm so eclectic with what I like to find. I just showed you all that tray, but this was rather interesting, and I have a feeling that my thrift did not know that this was real, even though it kind of is a dead giveaway. I just found this yesterday. I haven't hauled it yet. It's a Joan Crawford movie poster for the movie Torch Song, which came out in, I think, 1953. It was only $8. It came in the frame, but the frame is beaten to crap. And on the bottom where they taped it, you can see, well, barely see because of the glare. There's a mark for, I think, Paramount Studios, 1953. Let me look at that up close. Yep. Lowe's International, property of National Screen Service Corp. Oh, and it's an MGM film, not Paramount. Or that Holt Howard piece that I found for 75 cents the other day, like what, last summer? That was a good find because those are expensive. And even if it's still expensive, Holt Howard.
We had a request of a close-up of the pattern, so I'm just silently giving them a little visual while you talked. So.
Carrie Vintage Girl 75 said that she pulled the Starburst Pyrex piece that she found in her grandmother's kitchen for free. I've been looking.
Oh, that's fun.
That's the best way to do it.
That's the one that's like aqua, and then it has that really long star pattern on it, I think. Is that what you mean, Carrie? Because if that's the one, those are some. You got yourself a big, thick chunk of change there.
I love a good Starburst.
Cool. Me too. I love Starburst stuff. All right. So this is a good one because I think each of us may have a different section of the store that we'd like to go to. But when you visit a thrift store or an antique store, where do you start when you enter? Like, do you go to the clothing first? Do you hit the housewares for all the glass? Do you go to all the bric-a-brac? Where do you start?
So if I'm in a thrift store, I always go to the glass, but I've talked about this before, is I do not find anything at our Goodwill. I don't know what it is. I see all these other great hauls on YouTube, and I just think, man, why can't our Goodwill get something like this? But I do go to the antique stores, and there's a couple of booths that are my favorite. So I usually go to this one gentleman's booth at this big antique store in town that's all advertising and bottles and glass. So that's where I usually hit first. And then if I can, I'll go over to the record area. There's usually a vinyl collector.
How often do you go to that Goodwill? Because sometimes consistency is key to finding something good there.
So I went every day for like a month, and then around Christmas time I went back, and then I've been back since. And the only thing I found was I did find a Fostoria plate for 45 cents on half off day.
Awesome.
So that was sweet, but everything else is always just, newer 90s to 2000s pieces, and they're always usually broken or ripped up. So I don't know what the problem is. Maybe I just need to go every day.
What about you, Patrick? Where do you start when you go to any of the thrift stores or the antique malls?
Well, one of the benefits I have when I started my resale business, I was in a new job that did require me to travel. And so I actually am a traveling salesman with a 9-state territory. So I have a wide variety of places I'm able to go to. And there are a couple places that I will go back to repeatedly. But one of the best is the local Goodwill. And I've had a lot of luck there. I will typically go to the houseware section for the serving pieces, the platters. I'm not going to say they sell particularly well, but I'm always looking for the restaurant ware. I'm looking for an interesting pattern. Some of my mid-century modern stuff that I carry, comes from that. Won't spend a lot of time with the mugs or the glassware itself because that's still something I'm educating myself on. I've carried a few mugs and they've sold, but it's unless I can get them super cheap. But I can really find some nuggets sometimes in the housewares with the dishes, and I will only pick it up if it's in perfect condition, and the pricing near it leaves most of them. The pricing is still attractive enough because there's not a high demand for it. But if I can find a really cool piece, I'd love to be able to pass that on. And restaurant ware is always one of those that, you may not need a serving platter, but hey, this one's cool and it's 100 years old. So there's different ways that people will add on to it. So I'll usually hang out there first and then maybe make a sweep across some of the others. Not so much in the metal, not so much in the wood, not so much in the art. I sold one large oil painting and when I calculated the shipping, it was over $100 to ship it. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. So you'll learn as you go.
Right. I think for me, it just depends on what store I go into. I thrift most of my clothing, so I don't have to spend $1 million on that. Or most of the time, like if it's my Salvation Army, they have like one little special room that's got like toys and games and stuff. So I'll check there, and that's usually where they keep most of their holiday stuff when the specific season comes into place, like Easter, Christmas, Halloween. So I'll check in there, and I've gotten really lucky with some things that I find there. And then you come out of that room, and then you've got like clothing racks, which I usually avoid because they're not as organized as they should be. Then they've got dishes and salt and pepper shakers. They got figurine displays. They've got all kinds of stuff. So I'm one lucky person, especially for that store. But Goodwill is mainly where I get most of my clothing or clearance racks from other stores.
I got lucky on mine it's actually in the next town over. The St. Vincent de Paul has a distribution center and a warehouse for the region is really close to me. And so what they do is anything that's not worthy of going into one of their higher level stores in the area, it goes into their bargain basement. And I've found some amazing things there that I don't even understand why they weren't worthy of going into their shops. But, you end up getting these amazing pieces of, either figurines, or I've gotten some crystal there, anything. And for usually it's less than $1 because they're just trying to get through the volume. So it's not the bins, it's still a display, it's still a shop, but it's unique because it's not a St. Vincent de Paul, it's a St. Vincent de Paul warehouse. And I don't know how many of those exist, but that's one of my favorite places.
I've always wanted to go to the Lost Baggage thrift store. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but there's actually a store for all the airlines and international travel where stuff gets lost and no one claims it, and it goes. And I've seen people pick up like laptops, like Mac and stuff for really cheap, but also really cool like items from around the world and all different things. So I think it's somewhere in like Idaho, if I read that right, but I'd love to go because it sounds fascinating.
Didn't they do an Extreme Cheapskate episode where she got married in that store or something? I feel like I've heard of that before.
I think so. Yes, I think so. I've seen that show before.
That show's another trip.
Yeah,
but a lot of it's scripted too. It's reality TV.
Yeah,
so they fit a lot of crap into there to make us really think these people are like that. So Crazy Doxy Lady wants to know, Katie, where in Florida you are.
So I'm in Jacksonville, and that's about 2 hours from Orlando.
Because she says she has about 7 Goodwills within a 40-minute radius from where she is. I don't know where she's located, though. And then someone else had a question, too. Oh, Michelle just wanted us to mention where we all are from. Katie, you said you're from Florida. I'm from Maryland. And Patrick, you're from Illinois?
Yeah, I'm in the western suburbs of Chicago. So not in the city, but I usually just say I'm in Chicago.
Are you close to Nifty at all? Real Nifty?
No, he's in Southern Illinois. He's probably about 4-hour drive from me.
4 hours?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Illinois is a long state. So I'm
from Florida or Texas.
Yeah, Florida's crazy to get from the tip of the panhandle to the Keys is something like 14 hours. I mean, it's an amazingly long drive.
It's long. It's like 11 hours. I've done the drive once. I have a friend that lives in Miami, and his other friend who I know through him lives in the Keys, and we've made the trip. Boy, it's long. And that 7-mile bridge is huge.
Nope. Not doing that.
So what's the other? I had one more question for you all, and then I guess we can answer a few more because we're getting to that hour point. So we all like TV, and we've all been kind of forced to watch a lot of it during this crazy pandemic that's hit us globally. So what is your favorite television show from modern day and one from yesteryear?
So I know the 90s are now probably considered vintage, but my friends kid me and they say that I am a Monica, and because I cook very clean, and my favorite show in the entire world is Friends. There is something about it. I have seen each episode, I kid you not, probably 10, 11, 12 times, but it's like an old friend that just knows you so well, and the conversation's fun, and you never miss a beat, and I just love putting Friends on. Now, from yesteryear, if you're talking really older, I Love Lucy. You can't go wrong with Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball.
Love those shows. What about you, Patrick?
I tend not to. I no longer have a regular cable subscription, so I really just have the Netflix, the Amazon Prime, that Hulu, that kind of stuff. What I tend to is my go-to, and it's usually just running in the background as opposed to sitting down to watch it. I love theater, and as cheesy as it is, I love the series Smash. It only ran for 2 years, but it's available for free on the NBC app. I actually purchased a season through Amazon Prime, but you can get it for free. It's so crazy, but there's some great music in it. It's basically a behind the scenes, show. It's probably getting to the point where that's also starting to be considered yesteryear. I think it ran like 8 years ago, but I just watch that all the time. The only thing that I probably watch that's contemporary is maybe Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I do that series, and then yesteryear going into the Gilmore Girls, West Wing, those types of things, Friends. I still remember I watched the Seinfeld wasn't my favorite, but I remember watching the final episode of Seinfeld. I was actually in Montreal, Canada on a business trip, and my customer invited me to his house to watch it because it was the series finale. And so I still just remember it because it wasn't even my favorite show, but it turned into, it was a Seinfeld party and everyone was speaking French. We were in Montreal, and so it was one of these very surreal experiences that I still remember about Seinfeld. But Friends is a good one too, and everyone loves Lucy. So,
have you guys subscribed to this YouTube channel called Yesterday Today?
No.
Whoever this person is, has some of the most incredible photographs of places all over the world, the U.S., Canada, all over the place. He has great background music, and every time I watch one of those videos, I feel like I just time traveled back to the eras. There's such neat photos, like from all eras.
I'll have to subscribe to that.
You should. I'm hooked. I watched one of their videos and I got hooked. But for me, my favorite television shows, modern day and older, I would probably say my modern day favorite show is probably Forensic Files. I can binge watch that show all day. Even reruns I will watch over and over because they're so fascinating. There's something about that show. I've been watching it since I was little, and as I've gotten older, I've gotten less and less freaked out over it. But something about what people are able to do and what they think they can get away with is pretty impressive and kind of incredible to think about. Older show, I remember a couple of years ago, I won Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. And I finished Bewitched like a year or so ago. I love that show. I love Elizabeth Montgomery. I love Agnes Moorehead. So that was a really fun, whimsical, very kid-friendly show. I don't know how I got started with that either.
I love those old shows.
For Sandy's Lilacs, like Smash 2. Yay.
I've never even heard. I think I've heard of that, but I don't know.
That's why it only lasted 2 years. It wasn't a major. It was on NBC. I mean, it was a regularly produced show, but one of the problems with it was, and there's actually a podcast that is running right literally now that is reanalyzing all of it from the actor's perspective. Like, was it a good representation of the theater in 2011 or 2012 when it ran? And what they keep commenting on is how expensive it was, because it's like the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Like, at this point, it was running on NBC, so it needed the ratings, but it was filming in New York. They were renting out New York Broadway theaters in order to film Broadway sequences. The costs associated with this, if you like theater and you like Broadway, it's great because you get some amazing cameos and some amazing people. But it just didn't latch on to a wide range audience. And so it died. So it only lasted the 2 seasons. I didn't even watch it when it first came out. And then once I found it, I can't stop. 11, I could watch the 11 episodes in a week, let alone in a year. So 11 times.
I wonder if that surpassed how much Cleopatra took to make in 1963.
Yeah,
I wonder that.
Those can be interesting calculations.
How much money that was back then, but if you add it up with inflation, that was a pretty costly picture.
Well, I know some people have crunched numbers on Marvelous Mrs. Maisel that one of the most expensive aspects is the costume budget, because they're doing everything with period pieces. They're not reproducing them. So I think they have to be reproducing some things, but so she wears a different outfit every 5 minutes. So you've got, you just the clothing allowance for that show has got to cost a fortune. And it's also, I think it's also filming, I know it takes place in New York, but I think it also films in New York. So, you just have on location shooting, but it's with Netflix. So they don't have to worry about ratings so much. They can just make an entire season, and as long as people continue to subscribe, they can keep paying for it. It's that the old school of, well, didn't get enough ratings, got to cancel it. And that's why those end up in, that's why Netflix picks them up.
Well, I got hooked when I started watching Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I wasn't sure. I mean, I knew it was from, the vintage era and it would be fun, but I mean, the comedy's great. The costumes, just you're stepping back in time and it's just fun.
And for Sandy's, it's Catherine McPhee was the star. So, which I think she won or was runner-up at American Idol at some point. So then she went on to do this, and now I think she's playing waitress on the West, or was playing waitress on West End in London. So it's also like some people got really big. The guy that won the Tony for Hamilton, he has a really small role in it. So it's like, it's fun to kind of catch something before they were stars, so it's just a fun little time capsule that I just put it on the background and do some work and love it.
For sure. So before we wrap this up, there are a couple of other questions that I think we'll answer. So this one's for you, Patrick. Kim Zapp wants to know what your favorite part is that you played in theater.
I've only been doing theater for about a little over 4 years now. I definitely started my midlife crisis, and theater was a very nice escape for me. I think last year, the year before, I did 7 shows. So I went very seriously into it. Probably my favorite role to play was a show that not a lot of people know, but it's a musical. It's called She Loves Me. And I do not consider myself a singer, but I'm a man in theater, and those are relative. Those are unicorns in and of themselves. So if you can sing well enough, you'll get cast. And I played the role of Kadai in She Loves Me, who is an absolute womanizer, was an absolute jerk through the entire show. I was mean to people. I had so much fun playing that role. People would tell me afterwards, people I didn't even know, they're like, "Oh my God, we hated you. You were so good." And it was, that's what I'm going for. But probably my favorite overall experience was Death Trap. I played actually the Christopher Reeve role, if people know the movie. So I played the younger role. And what was a kick out of that is I was 47 or 48 when I played the role. And that character is supposed to be 25. So I, darkened my beard, grew my hair like almost as long as it is now, jet black, wore the 70s clothes with bell-bottom jeans, and just had a blast. I died every night. I got shot in the chest with a crossbow, fell down the stairs. My shoulder's still messed up because of that, but it's fun. But that was just a great experience because it was a fun cast. It was a fun set. It was a fun theater. It's a fun script. So, you look for different things, and it's not always what's your unicorn role or your bucket list role. I'm having it for fun. I've gotten paid a couple times, but for the most part, it's free. And those have been the best experiences I've had.
So should we have called you David Cassidy if you did that role?
I think I did a video at one point, maybe it was part of a challenge, and I think I posted some photos, and even pulling up the photos, I had to laugh because it was like 2 years ago. And I had lost a lot more weight. I was trying to get myself, I've added probably about 20 pounds since then. I'm still happy where I'm at. I'm still down 100 pounds from when I started, but I got myself skinny, for being that role. The skinniest probably I'd been in my adulthood. And yes, David Cassidy, maybe.
Just, I can picture him in the early 70s. He's got the bell-bottom jeans. I think he was when was the Partridge Family? Was that
was late 60s?
Okay, so he was a teenager.
Yeah,
basically around that time.
He started there, and then he kind of got his own name as from that. So then he was kind of in the 70s. But yeah, so I had the suede vest. It was yeah. You definitely got to experience the joy of that.
Times have changed.
Yeah,
no, I could never see myself wearing that.
But a lot of pieces, I actually did the set dressing for that show, and a lot of the pieces that I did, that was before I started my shop. Those were some of the first pieces that I listed for resale because I had all these really specific period pieces that I'm like, what am I going to do with these? So I finally started saying them.
trying to find another question here. Let's see. We'll do this one more and then we'll go ahead and conclude it if I can find one. I feel like so many people asked them and then we just kind of skipped over. Oh, we'll answer this one from Carolyn Whitney. She asked me, but I guess we can answer all of this since you guys are more glassware people than I. Any of you have any Taylor Smith Taylor dishes? I love every pattern. I don't think I own anything Taylor Smith Taylor, as far as I know.
I don't, but I'm going to be looking up some of their patterns now because I'm super curious. So that will be fun. Thank you very much, Carolyn.
I have had some. I don't know if I have any available in the shop right now, but that falls into, if you guys aren't familiar with them, Katie and Veni, if that's the aesthetic, that's definitely that 50s, 60s. Some of their, probably my favorite pieces that they did were their sugar and their creamer were like super swoopy. And the outside typically is a pale color, like maybe white, but the inside is like a turquoise or a pink or something. Like they have a very distinct look. And the one problem is a lot of what they did wasn't marked. Certainly as part of the big set, like maybe the dinner plate was marked, but maybe the salad plate or the bowls, like certain things aren't going to be marked. And so sometimes people don't know if they're Taylor Smith Taylor or not. So I remember I've sold some. I don't know if I got some in the shop, but yeah, that's got a distinct look. And that's not my era, but I absolutely love their designs.
See, I've bought, I think it was a piece of Ellie Smith, not Taylor Smith Taylor. It was that I sold at one of my live sales. It was one of those footed scalloped candy bowls. I don't know if you guys saw that or not.
Yeah.
I have
one of those.
Black depression glass bowl. That's very, very Art Deco. It's fun.
And sometimes what gets marked is it just says TS and T because it's actually Taylor Smith and Taylor. So sometimes I think one of the bowls I sold, like the tiny little stamp on it, it just said TS and T. So you have to recognize that the and actually makes it Taylor Smith and Taylor. So if you see it, that's what you're seeing. So you found a marked piece. And like I said, they don't mark everything. So
that's good to know.
Someone said that black glass is not even really black. It's like a really deep purple or something like that. I don't remember who said that.
Jeffrey, Real Nifty.
Yeah, I think is the one who said that.
It's more of an amethyst color, actually.
Right, amethyst.
If you're in the true antique, then yes, it is. It does have that purple, but some of the later pieces are genuinely black. And then there's actually a small section where they're actually a dark red. I actually had purchased a chandelier for my daughter's bedroom at her old house. And when I purchased it, I thought it was a black glass chandelier until we hung it in her cathedral ceilings and all the lights started hitting it. We're like, it's red. It's like that's not supposed to be red. So, but holding things up to the light can help a lot.
Yes, the light definitely helps for sure.
Absolutely. So everyone, I think we are going to go ahead and wrap this up. We are about at an hour and 12 minutes. I don't want to keep you all for too long because we have Sunday plans. So I do want to thank you all so much for stopping in, getting to know Patrick and Katie. Please be sure to subscribe to their channels. I will have them linked below. And make sure and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and leave a comment below. Let us know what we may have missed and I will get the answers for you. So take care, everyone, and we will see you all soon. And happy picking.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us, Vinny.
No problem. Oh, am I ending it? Nope.